Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and gender nonconforming individuals, to another episode of Wheels Boy Chat, the show where we entertain ourselves during the Shanghai lockdown by talking about car topics, specifically topics related to the Chinese car market. I am joined for today's video by my two lovely guests. First, Mr. Mark Andrews.
That's like deja vu, isn't it? Good to be back.
Yes, it is. And of course, Mr. Elliot Richards, who you will recognize from his personal YouTube channel, China Driver, as well as being the China correspondent for the Fully Charged Show. Welcome, Elliot.
Hello again.
Hello. So the topic for today's video is another specific car model. This time, it is the NIO ET5. We're going to talk about everything we know so far, at least, about the NIO ET5. So the ET5 debuted at last year's NIO Day. It would have been in December or November. Am I right, guys?
It was December.
December, thank you.
I was there the day after and saw it in the metal. I wasn't allowed to go to NIO Day due to COVID restrictions. So I've been to Hangzhou 2 days before and done the Zika.
Oh yeah, that's right. And you are the only one who's actually seen this vehicle in the flesh. The only one of the three of us, at least. And so I'm looking forward to hearing kind of your take on what you think about the aesthetics of it. But I want to give some really quick facts that should give some context for this. Much like the BYD Seal that we discussed a couple of episodes ago, this car is going to be a direct competitor with the Model 3. So a length of 4.79 meters and a wheelbase of 2,888 millimeters. So these are both very close, both slightly larger than the Model 3, but not quite as big as the BYD Seal, interestingly. For context, guys, the photo that you're seeing of the car on your screen right now is in a color they call Sunbathe Yellow, which is kind of like a muted gold yellow color that's actually very nice as I kind of flip through some of the images. This car's base price here in China before government subsidies is going to be around $51,450 US. After, and this is an important thing that we will talk more about later, but the price, if you choose to lease the battery, will start at $40,463 US if you convert it directly from the official price here in Chinese renminbi, RMB. The battery swapping thing is something that I want to talk about, but let's first, so guys, I want to throw a question out to you. So we said in our video about the BYD Seal, we disagreed on this a little bit, which is some of us felt that the BYD Seal wasn't really going to be a direct competitor as far as what consumers felt to the Model 3. It was in theory was, but maybe in reality wasn't going to be compared by a lot of shoppers. And then some of us felt it was very direct. A lot of the commenters felt that we were wrong about that. We got a lot of pushback saying that you guys don't, know that's how Chinese consumers used to think and this and that. And I tend to think what we said had a lot of backing based on our experience. But here's the question: putting aside the BYD Seal, the NIO ET5, Tesla Model 3 competitor, yay or nay?
Yes. NIO, the one company who really can compete with Tesla. They've got the tech, they've got the luxury, they've got the scale, the brand. It's all there. The whole package is there, and it sells for a good price, and it's popular, and it's kind of got this cult following in China. NIO, much like Tesla has a kind of cult following as well. And that's going to stand them in very good stead for the ET5, which is probably the most exciting car that NIO, I'm going to say fanboys, are looking forward to the most, is the ET5. That's probably the biggest car that the company's going to launch since the company started, I think.
Yeah, a real volume sedan. For context, really quickly, the 40,000 USD asking price, starting price for the battery leased version, that is directly in line with the Tesla Model 3 starting price here in China, if I'm not mistaken. They're both around 40,000 US dollars. Mark, what about you? What do you think?
I personally see it as a kind of pincer movement. You've got the BYD Seal coming in at the lower end, and you've got the NIO ET5 at the higher end. And I actually agreed quite a bit with a lot of the comments regarding the Seal. So there's this movement at the moment in China called Guochao, which is like China Wave, or it's to do with buying Chinese products. So I think there has been a change compared with a few years back. And particularly when you look at the EV market, there isn't really, other than Tesla, that many companies that are doing well in China for like international OEMs. Obviously, Tesla has been doing well, but for a lot of the EV companies in China, they're now a huge target. They're targeting Tesla. So, as I said, I think there's going to be a pincer movement against the Model 3 between these two cars.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense. I want to give I'll give you some more data just for a little bit more context as we talk about the ET5. So the ET5's powertrain, what we know is that it's a dual motor car, so front and rear, obviously, for a total of 360 kilowatts and 700 newton meters of torque. That's 480 horsepower and 516 pound-feet or foot-pound, however you want to say it. And it claims 0 to 100 kilometer per hour time of 4.3 seconds. Not Tesla performance, ludicrous speed type fast, but definitely fast enough for your average buyer. And besides that, the NIO's never really sold their cars purely based on raw performance, right, guys? I mean, that's the NIO trademarks, the NIO selling points have always been, it's been more of the owner experience and the luxury features and things like that. They're not like raw, unadulterated speed, So an interesting question as we discuss maybe on next week's episode about NIO going abroad and whether they can continue to offer that service. But that put a pin in that one. So
what I'd say is interesting is that actually it's slower than the ET7.
Yes, ET7's 3.9 seconds, isn't it?
Yeah. But I think there's one huge reason why that's the case, because if you look at the drag coefficient, it's 0.24, whereas the ET7 is about 0.2 something. So the ET7 is actually currently the second most aerodynamic car on sale in the world.
Drag is king when it comes to acceleration.
Yeah.
And
What's the
top
first?
speed. Yeah, well, yeah, actually, wait, yeah. What's the first?
What's the first?
ESQ. The Mercedes ESQ.
Oh, yeah, okay.
EQS.
EQS, sorry.
I was
I'm terrible when it comes to the three-letter Mercedes. I just can never remember the three-letter combinations.
It's always there's some tricks to it. It took me probably a year to get it, but I think I've got it in my mind now. But yes, the EQS, because at first I was thinking, did Mercedes launch a vehicle that I was not aware of called the ESQ?
There is actually an ESQ. That's in Infinity. It's what they sold the Juke as in China.
Yes. Oh, now I wish I had that in the slideshow. That is what I could do. Can we do a whole video about that whole experiment? But ultimately it doesn't matter because they didn't sell a Juke or ESQ like R here, which is the GTR powertrain in the Nissan Juke, and that's the only Juke that really matters in my opinion. Let's talk about some other things that obviously buyers for electric cars care a lot about when it comes to range. And this will lead us into our conversation about battery leasing, which I think is obviously very interesting. The claimed range on this vehicle using the 150 kilowatt hour battery, oh my God, that's huge, is 1,000 kilometers or about 620 miles. But that is on the CLTC test cycle, everybody. So that's the Chinese domestic test cycle, which is apparently quite optimistic. I don't want to throw out what it would look like in real life. I'm sure there will be real world testing for it. The other battery options are the 100 and the 75 kilowatt hour batteries. So the 100 kilowatt hour battery is going to deliver, again, CLTC 700 kilometers or 435 miles. And then the 75 kilowatt hour battery, the entry level battery, so to speak, is 550 kilometers or 341 miles. So good numbers, of course. The headline number, that 1,000 kilometers, how real world it is, well, we know it's not very real world. But what I want to talk to you guys about, and what I want to hear your thoughts about, is the battery leasing. This is something that NIO has been talking quite a bit about. For context, it is said that they're going to charge a little bit over $150 per month if you want to lease the battery on your ET5, the 75 kilowatt hour battery, and then around $230 per month if you want to lease a 100 kilowatt hour battery. It appears for now, at least, the 150 kilowatt hour battery is not available for lease. So can you guys give me your thoughts on, like, who do you think this is going to appeal to? What are the benefits of battery leasing, that kind of thing?
I think that I know a few NIO users here in Shanghai, and they've said that, it's really good for them just to have the, 75 kilowatt hour battery because it's cheaper per month for their use around Shanghai. And then when they do those longer distance trips, they swap in the larger battery, pay a bit more money, and that they can do that trip quite easily. And they just swap it out. But 150 kilowatt hour battery is going to be very heavy, so it's going to wear your tires, potentially wear your brakes, your suspension more than the other batteries.
Good point.
Carrying that big heavy load around. So I do think the concept is a good idea, and I think in Shanghai, it's people are gonna use it. Battery swapping is massive here. There's queues outside most battery swap stations. Obviously, not at the moment, but they are exceptionally popular. People just do that instead of charging. So I think that offering this as a kind of cheaper way to get into a NIO is a really good idea. In fact, I looked at buying a NIO as well, and I thought, what's the cheapest one I can get? It's an ES6 with a rented battery.
Yeah.
Didn't go for it in the end, obviously, but
yeah, I think that, well, it's actually interesting now that I think about this, and I'm sure that they'll have ways to deal with this, but there's an increasing number of battery sizes and stuff, I imagine they'll have to update their apps as to, you go to a battery swapping station and you want a 150. I doubt there'll be that as many 150s in circulation as 175. So you kind of have to, like, I'm sure they'll have a way for the app to say, like, hey, there are 6 150 kilowatt hour batteries ready at this station, that kind of thing. Because I would think you don't want to show up on a road trip with your to swap
that's
out
a good point.
Yeah, you swap 150 kilowatt hour battery, knowing that it will give you the range to get to where you want to go, to find out this station's only got 100, or it's only got
Or
75, or 75, yeah. Even more. So
you're halfway to like Qinghai province, and you stop off, and they've only got 75 kilowatt hour battery.
Yeah,
so that halves your range instantly. I mean, it's definitely an issue.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But it's interesting. I know that if people have talked about it as being appealing to people, obviously one of the big, said to be one of the big hurdles for potential EV buyers is the issues with the degradation of batteries and also the resale value on EVs due to degradation of batteries. So you bought this EV and you want to sell it, and maybe the rest of the car looking great condition, number one. But if you've been driving it, regularly and stuff, then that battery may be a little bit more degraded. Of course, with battery swapping stations, however, as long as they're removing degraded batteries, then that's no longer even a thing. Because when you get ready to sell your NIO, you're not going to even probably have the same battery that you bought with it. So I don't know. That's an interesting, that in and of itself seems to have probably loosened or lessened rather the concerns about that kind of thing, I would think.
There's one thing to actually really note with 150 kilowatt hour battery.
Mm-hmm.
That is actually a semi-solid state battery.
Oh yeah.
So it's a new technology coming in. This will be the first one in the world to actually reach production level. It's supposedly going to come out later this year, but I mean, there's also some speculation that it could be delayed or whatever. And also, interestingly, it's a new battery supplier for NIO. Previously, all their batteries came from CATL, whereas the new semi-solid state one comes from WeLion.
Oh, there we go. Well, I mean, it's a big step forward in batteries, in theory at least. Mark, you and I have talked about this before, and I think Elliot and I probably have too, which is that just how much, and I can't remember if this came up in our last video, but it'll probably come up in every EV video we do, which is, we need to stop using range as the end-all be-all metric, and we need to start looking at efficiency, kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, because no one's ever bought a gasoline vehicle or a petrol car, internal combustion car, because the advertisement said, unless it's like a diesel maybe, the advertisement said, 800 kilometer range. They did it because it says, however many, 4 liters per 100 kilometers or something like that. Whereas with EVs, we purely look at range, and these guys they can just cheat by just taking these ridiculously huge battery packs full of rare earth metals and jamming them into it and just going like, there you go, 1,100 kilometers. So that's something that I think we're all on the same page when it comes to that. Are we not, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah.
Actually, there's a little story. I'm not sure if I really should tell the story or not, but it's what happened to me.
Those are the best stories, Mark. Those are the best stories. Go.
Yeah, well, it happened to me when I did a test drive of an ES6 last year. And I decided, okay, I've never experienced a battery swapping station, so let's just rock up the battery swapping station and see what happens. So obviously I did. And basically the computer said no. So obviously the ES6 I got was the completely up-to-date version with regarding to software, etc. Unfortunately, this up-to-date software could not be read by the battery swapping station.
Oh.
All sorts of computer upgrades then had to happen with people plugging in laptops to various things. So what should have taken 3 minutes actually ended up taking 20 or more minutes for a battery swap.
All right.
So there's obviously, as was mentioned earlier, there is some sort of issues when it comes to software and being able to be read. And so when it comes to different battery sizes, that could be a potential problem. And that's obviously something NIO is going to have to sort out from the word go.
Yeah. I mean, you're always with these different battery sizes coming in and stuff, and the fact that they're always updating the software on these cars, and I'm sure in the battery stations, it wouldn't surprise me that's something that could happen. I mean, it's like it's like plugging in your device and then having to download or update the firmware or whatever. Not a perfect metaphor. I'm sure there's somebody that has more tech savvy than me that's ripping their hair out hearing me say that, but you guys get the idea.
I think there's another potential issue in the future as well, because battery swapping isn't just a NIO thing; it's a Geely thing. It's everyone's jumping into the battery swapping game, and the government are trying to standardize the size of the packs and how they go into the cars and stuff. So there's a potential situation where NIO's in its own kind of ecosystem with the NIO swapping battery pack. Then every other manufacturer's got the standardized Chinese version.
Mm-hmm.
So that could become an issue in the future for NIO unless they want to.
NIO have offered it to other providers, but as it's based on the platform, they're essentially going to have to use the platform as well.
Right.
So they're not going to. So it comes as a package sort of.
And that, NIOs are quite big platforms. So if you're going to get Wuling, Mini's EV to do battery swapping, which would actually be quite useful.
Yeah.
You'd have to get a tiny little NIO battery to go inside. I don't know. There's lots of complications coming in the future, so it could be an interesting time ahead for battery swapping.
That has me thinking how awesome it would be to have a battery swappable little mini EV size car, right?
I don't want to go down another track, but on Taobao they sell extra battery packs for Wuling Mini EVs, which go into the boot, and you plug it in, and it gives you another 80 or 100 kilometers of range by a third-party company. It's obviously not endorsed.
I love it.
But you can buy these for a few thousand RMB and double your range.
Not a fire hazard. Not a fire hazard at all.
Definitely not.
No way.
Definitely not.
Not at all something that you don't want to have sitting behind the rear passenger seat, a heavy battery that will no doubt...
Well, you wouldn't fit one behind the rear passenger seat in a Wuling Mini EV because there's no space there.
That's true.
I can't remember if they took out the back seats. Maybe they took out the back seats then.
Oh,
I can't remember.
You have to fold it down.
Well, that's bad news, because then your rear passengers won't be able to cushion the impact of that battery coming loose in the event of an accident and turning into like death, like just this huge heavy thing going forward and knocking out and killing everyone in the car.
Which of course doesn't have airbags.
Which list? Yeah, I was gonna say. Yeah, listen, the Mini EV, much you love it. Yes, it's you're dead. You're dead either way. Let's be honest. So one of the things, tech things I want to get into really quickly with the ET5 is that it is on the NIO's. Oh my gosh, I've completely blanked on what is the name of the NIO platform?
NT 2.0.
NT 2.0. Thank you very much. Which means that it has the NIO's Aquila Super Sensing and NIO Atom Supercomputing systems, which we're not going to get into the details of, but what matters is that it has ultra long range LiDAR, high resolution cameras, millimeter wave radar, ultrasonic sensors, blah, 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 blah. The things that you would expect, 33 sensing units in total. They seem to be taking the same approach as Tesla and Xpeng, which is put that hardware on there and then figure that software out later, baby. Because the ET7 also has this same platform, I believe, and the same LiDAR system, but as far as I know, the ET7 and I think
It's not operating.
the Xpengs, yeah, nobody's using LiDAR really yet, but one day. So that's interesting. What I want to discuss really quickly is some of the interior of this car, which very nice, very similar to the ET7, which is both of you guys have driven. I have not yet. I'm sad about that. And I want to know what you guys think about this, because when this car was debuted at NIO Day, they talked a lot about, or they mentioned at least, the Pano Cinema, which is the AR VR interior experience they have, where basically you use a pair of, and I've got an image on the screen now from NIO Day showing the super stylish VR/AR glasses that you have to wear, but it apparently gives you it's the equivalent of having I have the numbers here, a 201-inch screen projected 20 meters away from you. So basically you're looking at the windshield of the car and it looks like a gigantic screen. And you can do stuff with that. I mean, that was kind of my, the reaction that I think I'm getting from these guys, which is just like, I'm kind of a troglodyte technologically. I admit I'm not super interested. I guess I'm not obsessed with having the latest tech. This is cool, but I'm and maybe people in the comments can tell us, was that something you would use? What do you think you would use it for? Because personally, apart from parking your car and watching a movie in front of it with your cool glasses on, and there's going to be VR glasses coming later, apparently, like full VR headset glasses, which is even better. What are you going to use that for?
I mean, to me, it seems rather like it's a gimmick, rather like in the Xpeng P5 with the cinema mode. Also, I think, quite honestly, with the glasses, they create a sort of IMAX type screen, don't they? As far as I know.
Yeah. It's augmented reality, and so maybe there's I don't know. There's boulders flying at you or something. I have no idea. It does feel like a gimmick, and I agree that I did immediately think of the Xpeng, the P5. I guess this one doesn't have to have a projector built into the back of it, and a screen that pulls down and everything, and a mattress. But
I mean, three of us here, we review cars, right? And cars drive. We don't review tech features, it's just, fine. All right, they're going to have it. But I'm more interested about how the car drives. These are just, like Mark said, it's a gimmick. Mm-hmm. If it comes out, great. But, whatever. Yeah. Doesn't really bother me. Is it going to get buyers to buy the car? Probably not really. It's a nice thing that you have that you can show off to your friends, but
yeah.
So what?
Yeah. I mean,
I can't really see how people would use it. Perhaps people in the comments can tell us, but I can't see why you'd want to sit in your car really watching a movie.
Maybe if you're charging, but if it's battery swapping, it's 3 minutes, and if it's charging, it should be pretty quick. But maybe you can watch snippets of the latest Marvel movie in your VR screen while you're charging your car. I don't know. It's not as though there are zero use cases. It's just one of those things where, in my mind, I'm like, how much did this cost? How much is this adding to the cost of my car? To like, if you can take 10,000 RMB off of the cost of my ET5 and not,
but it's not going to be included in the price. These are extras, like with the Xpeng P5, Fair. Projector, etc. That is an extra. It's not included in the price.
But I think from my and again, we will learn more later, and maybe my understanding is I'm mistaken, but I think that the hardware for this is probably already just all built in. Maybe it's multi-use. Maybe the hardware they have for this is also used for other things that are maybe more useful or something. But I just wanted to touch on that because I thought it was pretty interesting. you guys, so really quickly, let me go back to a picture of the interior so I can show the viewers. Talk really quickly about just some numbers. I mean, you guys can see it's beautiful. It's very similar to the ET7, if I'm not mistaken. And it's got a 10.2 inch HDR instrument cluster. You can see behind the wheel there, and then a 12.8 inch center screen. Not massive, but definitely big enough. And of course, right there on top, everybody's favorite robot friend, Nomi. I will say, speaking of that, it's not like this is Neo's first gimmick. Nomi's obviously a gimmick. And I will say that the only person I've ever met who I had a former coworker who was a NIO ES6 owner, and I asked her, "Did you get Nomi?" And she said, "Yes, I did." And I said, "Why?" And she goes, "My 4-year-old daughter liked it." And I went, that's the answer. That's the answer.
I like Nomi.
All right, sorry. Mark is a Nomi apologist. I won't bully the little robot woman, or may I don't know. I don't think it's gendered actually. On the
It's got a female voice.
Okay, well then I guess so. I will not bully the little robot girl. But it just in closing, guys, I wanted to see if you guys had any thoughts about how this thing looks. We've touched on it. I think before we started recording, we talked about it. Looks a lot like an ET7 if you take it and you make it a little shorter.
I think where the ET7 was big, it still looked good. It was in proportion. This just makes a bit more sense in cities. I think they're really going after like the BMW 3 Series, 5 Series kind of market, and the Tesla Model 3, right? So it's kind of that mid-sized sedan. Everyone is going to like it. It's not going to be too big. It's not going to be too small. It's just that all-round kind of great car. And judging by the ET7, which is obviously fantastic, mostly, if they take that recipe, like condense it down slightly, they're probably onto a winner.
I certainly agree with Elliot in that I think it's going to be very popular. I think it's going to sell well. As I said with the Seal, I think when you look at the silhouettes of these cars, there's a sort of homogenization of them. They're beginning to look alike. So when I actually saw the ET5 in the metal, I thought, yeah, it really looks quite like a Model 3 in many ways. Obviously, it's not a doppelganger or anything, but you can see a really quite a similarity between them. But yeah, it should sell well. I don't see any reason it won't. One slight disappointment with the interior is that they don't use the rattan material that they have on the ET7, which I think is really marvelous.
Taroon is the name of it.
Yeah, that's the what they've called it. Yes.
Interesting. This one I have to experience in person. I haven't tried this yet. Well, I agree with everything you guys said. I mean, I do think it's going to be a really strong competitor to the Model 3. I also think I'm doing the test. I have on screen here a profile shot of the car, and I'm doing the thing where you cover the rear and the front, and you go, okay, yeah, looks exactly like every other car in this day and age, because aerodynamics are a thing, and algorithms and computer design and everything.
Except it's not particularly aerodynamic. For an EV.
For an EV, yeah, actually, 0.24, they talk about that. It's not that impressive these days. But design highlights, I love, again, and these are all compliments that I could give to the ET7. I love the rear end. I think the rear end is beautiful, Porsche-esque, in a great way. Reminds me of the Taycan, great little lip spoiler and everything. But yeah, I think that we've talked enough for now, almost a full 30 minutes about the ET5. For those of you guys who we've gotten all the way this far. I always say to the guys, yeah, this one I don't think we need to talk more than 10 minutes, 8 minutes about it, and then we inevitably go for 30 minutes because we're 3 car enthusiasts that could sit and talk about this all day long. But we won't. We will not put you guys through that. Thank you very much for watching this episode. If you have any questions or comments, of course, please put them down below. We love to respond to your comments and, of course, incorporate them into future videos. Thank you, Mark, very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elliot.
Thank you.
You can see both of their handles. You can see their Twitter handles below them, as well as Elliot. You can check him out on the Fully Charged channel or China Driver. Mark, you can check him out on his website. Great writer. Check him out on places like Autocar, if I'm not mistaken. Writes a lot of great articles about Chinese cars. But that's going to do it for today's video. Thank you very much for joining us. Have a good one.